Welcome everybody to the Pi Day webinar, Talk Nerdy to Me. We're going to be talking about analytics, metrics, things that matter. I've got two wonderful guest speakers here today. I'm thrilled that you guys could join us. And we are going to be giving away some free pies on the webinar. That's something we've never done before. It's me, Matthew, CMO at TradePending. Catherine, please say hello.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Bandstra, and I am a marketing account manager with Schomp Automotive and also the business development manager for Hive Analytics.
And Alex, please introduce yourself too. We'll give you a little bit more time to go into depth, but just say hi to everybody for us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex McQueary. I'm General Sales Manager, Hubler Ford Franklin.
Thank you. All right. As we always do, we'll record this. We share it out afterwards. If you have questions, use the Q&A, use the chat. Feel free to fire those in as we go. We'll do our best to field them and present them to our speakers as we go. If you're not yet, follow TradePending on social media. We give away calendars, t-shirts, pins. We also share a lot of helpful content, best practices, not just about the product, but just about what we see happening in sales and marketing. If you haven't noticed, also lately we launched TradePending TV. That's me. There's a lot of my face on there. I'm not sure how I entirely feel about that, but some really great content that's coming at you there too. All right, we're going to come back to the free pies here. You got to stick around for this whole show here. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and we'll kick it over for some questions. So I'm going to call everybody by like their full name today because it's the Talk Nerdy to Me webinar. Where, like, you could call me Matt, Alex, or Kat, or whatever. Like, we're going with Alexander. Alexander, please tell us about yourself, your role, what you're doing there, why it's great to be there.
Well, I'm the General Sales Manager of a Ford franchise dealership. Background is not originally from cars, but well, that's neither here nor there. But I handle our sales department. I come from a background of internet sales, BDC. So I've run BDCs. I've run, obviously, internet sales departments, both with, like, as in a BDC and direct round robin to salespeople. Watching the difference between those two models and how they operate has been really interesting. Obviously, for our group, I do a little bit of marketing as well, obviously choice of whether or not we choose one platform or another, or a third-party vendor for this, that, or the other. And I have my fingers in, well, it's Pi Day. I have my fingers in many, many pies. But it is absolutely fabulous. It's an exciting time to be in the car business.
Catherine, over to you for the same question.
Yes, so my name is Catherine Bandstra, and I started originally in sales when I moved into automotive. So I've been in the sales world, and I was lucky enough to move over to the marketing department. And from there, I kind of feel that intermittent that Alexander was talking about what are we doing with our third-party vendors. So I help all 11 of our rooftops build really strong ROIs, make those decisions, and help them evaluate their leads every month. It's been, like Alexander said, again, very interesting time in the car business as we kind of move into some new platforms, some new metrics. It's going to be an interesting couple of years coming up.
Indeed, and it has been, and it looks like it will be for this year as well. So Catherine, I'll throw the first pointed question at you. Let me get my list going here. So you said that other companies might find your approach to data analytics provocative or ruffle some feathers. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. What we mean by that is we strongly think that your CRM is the single point of truth for everything that's happening in your dealership, meaning not only your processes, but also where your measure of improvements really come from. It's kind of the centralized hub that tells a really predictable narrative about how all your third-party vendors are coming in, and then how your sales managers and your salespeople are actually handling those leads. And it's kind of the outcome based. And what's really interesting too is because you have this kind of conglomerate where everything's funneling in, you get very, very strong benchmarks. You have a period where you can measure as far back as whenever you started using your CRM. And so that's a really, really powerful tool. And when we look at that, we can find not only disruptions in the process where the sales process might be flawed, but we can also evaluate all of our third parties in a really, really nitty gritty way and say, you say you're delivering this many leads to our CRM. However, how many of those leads were on the same vehicle and how many of those leads came in after we already pulled that from, or it was marked sold and we pulled it from our website. So really interesting things like that.
Yeah, thank you for framing up essentially kind of a holistic approach to how you guys just think about measuring performance. Alexander, over to you. Like if you had to put kind of a holistic framework on how you're measuring performance there, how do you sum it up?
Well, data driven, of course, but garbage in, garbage out. The worse my reporting is, the worse, the worse compliance and use of CRM is, the worse it gets. Ultimately, a lot of that comes down to training salespeople appropriately. And yeah, that can be difficult. More often than not, that tends to be the fly in the ointment when it comes to whether or not your data is any good or if it's useful or not. Obviously, you could draw conclusions based on it, but data is just a guide point, if that makes sense. The absolute truth of the answer isn't there. You'll find it. It'll lead you in the right direction, but it isn't the end, the be all end all. At the end of the day, what's working, what isn't working, you can also trace down to sales staff. So this obviously the marketing side and BDC side need to link in with sales side in a very integrated way, which I think that's part of why we're here today, is to talk about how dealers do that a little bit better.
Yeah, and that reminds me, so you had mentioned that, you know, to many people in automotive, like what happens in the internet is just a black box, right? What did you mean by that? How do you demystify that?
So the internet is a black box. To a lot of general managers, to a lot of DOs, to a lot of people, the internet's a black box. Money goes in one end and out come deals.
That's my favorite kind of box. If I could have a box like that, like just put money in and get money back out, more money back out.
That's the trouble. Some boxes work better than others. What goes on inside that box, the gears, the things that make one box more efficient than another, that's a really opaque process to a lot of dealers. Again, a lot of GMs, a lot of DOs, a lot of GSMs, a lot of sales managers, a lot of people don't quite get how well that box can work or how to improve that box's functionality. So a lot of SDRs are run as call centers functionally. There's not a lot of training as far as sales goes. I think that's where there can be such a massive disconnect for dealers between treating a BDC as though it's a call center, between treating your internet as though, well, this isn't performing. Well, maybe we should dig into why it's performing. Have we trained on appropriate word tracks? Are the people answering these leads, are they reading them? Are they trained to read them? Are they trained to read it appropriately? Is it coming through as my CRM as something readable, or is it coming in as just XML that no one wants to take the time to read? These are these kind of little steps. These are these tiny gears inside this black box that all too often are overlooked.
Wonderful. And you're starting to describe that it's not really just about the data. We'll come back to the data, but a lot of it has to do with process. And Catherine, you had mentioned that, you know, you're overseeing quite a number of dealerships, and some are going to be more phone centric, some are email centric. And you, looking at the data, have to think about, well, how do I measure these uniformly?
Yeah.
You measure these uniformly.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And that's how we segment our data. We look at not only the engagement rate, we're looking at closed rate, we're looking at what an adjusted close looks like when we take into account any sort of deposited or custom bespoke vehicles that are being ordered. And then we also look at the dead percentage. And when we look at those holistically, that gives us that 30,000 foot view before we start to narrow that like clear sight picture. And then we can go back into the CRM and we look at how many touch points do we have per lead and what's the standard, not only based upon brand, but also the messaging. Some OEMs have a really, really strong campaign message that comes with, you know, they supply us with imagery, they supply us with, you know, email templates, things like that, where other OEMs, you know, you're kind of fending for yourself and there's only so much that you get. So you have a lot of creative liberty in your messaging and who you're targeting. what's great is we know what type of buyers gravitate to certain brands. And so we can target that messaging that way. We've found that SMS and text is a very, very strong way. And we treat that text message as a way to earn the phone call. Ultimately, we're always trying to get someone on the phone, speak to them in person, make sure we're answering those questions. But that's what we're looking at. We have to really start very wide to move it down, and then how we are treating that client.
Thank you. A question for both of you, but I'll send it over to Alexander first. So what type of data are you looking at? Daily versus weekly versus monthly? I know there's probably a lot of standard answers here, but you guys had some great takes on this.
Daily, we tend to look at tasks, outbound, inbound. God, I'll even look at duration of call. Depending on, again, how much your dealer group invests in tools for tracking these things, that can make a difference. I know some can even go as granular as word clouds. Obviously, I would not recommend looking at word clouds daily for call tracks. As a GSM, typically daily, I will look at outbound, inbound tasks, number of lead volume, my website traffic, overall. Typically, I'll look to see if one referral source has gotten crazy or not. Depends on who your overall digital marketing vendor is going to be. So we can try to get a handle on what's going on, what units. Again, generally, am I getting a whole lot of leads on, say, a wholesale piece that went live, at 3 a.m. on Sunday morning? Okay, well, that's clearly a thing. I'm going to get a bunch of leads on this because I have a cheap car, thank God. I don't know about anybody else. Wholesale pieces have been incredible for generating leads. We tend to look at that daily. Weekly, we actually start to dig into close rate and process. So we start to look at that funnel, that waterfall, whatever you want to call it, where we're starting to see, okay, how many do we have in? How many have we actually spoken to and contacted? How many of those contacted with whom have we set an appointment? Of those appointments, who's shown, of the shown, who's sold, that kind of thing. That's at the weekly level, you can actually really start to look at that and start to narrow that down. Generally at month end, that data starts to firm up and look a little bit better, because again, there's always that bit of lag time between a lead coming in and working its way down that funnel. Sometimes that will take time. So always make adjustments for that. And of course, month end, as Catherine said, that's when we start to look in things like deposits or order units or anything else of that nature. You start to really filter at end of month. And that's when you start to build your 30,000 foot strategy. Weekly, though, you're really at the level where weekly and daily, you're at the level where you're starting to generally manage stats more than anything.
Catherine, admittedly, you have a different view on this. How do you think about that question? What are you looking at daily, weekly, monthly?
Yeah, absolutely. We operate in a completely different echelon. What our day-to-day operations within a marketing and analytics department is completely different than the dealership level, but we have to be completely empathetic to what's happening. What I'm doing daily is not what's going to be useful and functional for the dealership. But when I start to look at the week, that's when I start to see it. And to Alexander's point, he made a great point about, when we look at pulling these metrics, who are we using them with? Something that I'm looking at weekly is call tracking. I'm looking at not only agent performance, but what the call connectivity rate is. I have a very standardized way of measuring that. I have an expectation. And when I see that stores are failing to perform that, I go back into the CRM. I look at not only inbound, but outbound. Now, this is, again, a little bit more controversial. While we do measure month over month over month, we really don't believe in measuring anything shorter than a 90-day period for establishing a baseline. So when we go to our stores and we report to them monthly about what their key performance metrics are, we take a 90-day period. So for instance, in March, I'm reporting all the way from December of 2022 through the end of February in 2023. And what that does is it gives us this period of time. Without time and periodicity, we can't see those trends moving up and down. We can't see how many leads did I have from this month to this month to this month. Are we making a slow progression? Are we making an explosive progression? What happened in that time? Did we have vehicle drops? Did we have a campaign? Was there an OL code for something? So things like that really help us understand what is happening. And then it also helps us bolster up our sales staff as we need it, as we move into summer and we expect, bigger things to come, more vehicles to come in, sales seasons picking up. So all of those things, yeah. So it is different. It is, but again, that empathy for what's happening at the store level, as Alexander says, we know exactly what he's doing, and we are there ultimately to help them, not only kind of dissect that information, but also disseminate marching orders to help things run smoother.
I'm going to throw a quick random question here at you. So a lot of looking at the analytics and the data is to spot challenges and issues. How do you prevent everybody from running the opposite direction when they see you coming, because they just think you're just bringing them bad news of things that they're doing wrong that you want them to fix, right? There's got to be an element of positivity in here. How do you think about that?
Absolutely. And see, that's what's funny is there's always that ebb and flow. I mean, our GMs and GSMs, they're smart people. They're keenly aware of what's happening in the market, but we've set up this process where they know we're coming every single month. They know what we're going to present them. They know that we're going to be looking at not only internet, but phone and showroom leads. They know that we can help them look into their campaign messaging. So they rely on us heavily, not only for those things, but we also help with their inventory and their pricing and their syndication. And so we're reporting on those things too. And so when they see an issue or something's not hitting their website as it should, we're always their first call. And they know that we're going to peel back the layers of that onion until we get them the answer. So it is a healthy balance. Sometimes we don't have great news and they're like, thanks, marketing department. Well done. Just rain on our parade. But, other times we're kind of the 911 line when things start to go wrong and things get derailed. So, we get to play both sides of that coin of hero and villain, and it's really fun sometimes.
Yeah, wonderful. Things have definitely been weird the past few years, and they're continuing to stay weird. Alexander, has anything changed about your approach in the last 6 months, either given macroeconomic conditions or what you're seeing happening locally in your market?
Well, first, I did want to give Catherine a lot of credit for the 90 days. Generally, anyone watching, you shouldn't brag about your internet close rate until you have a 90-day average. That's when it truly is a process that's working. As far as changes to process, on my end, we're having to move more towards, again, as inventory starting to arrive, actually, versus the massive shortages. At our end, we're actually having to train our sales staff to be a little bit, we've gotten used to being order takers, not order takers. We've gotten used to being, we've been used to being order takers because at least we have the vehicle. It's been really easy to sell cars the last couple of years because there are so few of them. If you have it, they're contacting you, it's probably because they want it. Fortunately, as far as process and training goes, we've not really leaned on that too horribly much here in my group. But I can definitely see that issue being something that a lot of dealers would need to get ahead of in the coming months. As inventory starts to normalize, as more and more manufacturers start to onshore or find alternative sources for components, and our things start to get better, we're going to have to become salespeople again, which is not going to be comfortable for a lot of dealers.
Thank you. Catherine, have your processes changed at all in the last 6 months, or is it more the data you're reporting on has changed in the last 6 months, or something different?
It's a little bit of both. Our key metrics are still there. They haven't changed that much in measurement, but we're adjusting how we're kind of bringing that to the forefront. We're going, what is actually useful? And is this just a regurgitation of numbers, or is this something that's not only objective and factual in its underlying message, but is it something that can be synthesized and is it actionable? So those are the things that we're really trying to do. We're putting that process into, hey, we're giving you this information, but we don't just expect it to lie dead in the water. We want you to do something with it, or let us help you do something with it. In terms of our process, Schomp is unique in that we've always been a one-price dealership. With shortages and kind of markups in the market, we're starting to think about that, and collectively as a group we're going, what do we want to do next? Are we going to keep relying on that one price messaging and going forward? And how can we make sure that we make that a really seamless process and that we're holding not only ourselves accountable to that, but making sure that our sales staff is prepped and ready. Alexander made a great point. We're getting back into a place where we need to be salespeople. We have to make that compelling argument. We have to put that best foot forward when we present the vehicles, numbers, anything like that to our clients.
Shifting gears, the acronym, there's a lot of them. CDP is a hot topic these days. Customer data platform, unified data platform, the whole premise being take all your data from your different sources, your CRM, your phone system, text, email, whatever, smash it all together. Now you have one unified look of your customer that can inform potentially all your marketing activity, how you think about the customers, how you treat them from a lifetime value perspective. Alexander, what's your take on this? And where are you guys in terms of thinking about this?
I've been in talks with a lot of different vendors as far as this goes, so this has been fun. There's certainly quite a bit of value to it. Again, that 30,000 foot perspective, especially if we can start to rope in GMs, GSMs as stakeholders. Again, the black box, people get a lot of I guess anxiety is maybe the right word, maybe a little bit of resentment about internet. It's an annoying thing that isn't traditional car business to a lot of people. God knows it's been around long enough, but again, we're kind of a slow moving business in some ways. We're fast in others. As far as utilization, it's been extremely useful just at the dealer level to start getting that better picture and begin acting on it. You could definitely start to see a widening gap between dealers that embrace it and dealers that don't, even just within my own group.
Is there a sweet spot for the size or the type of dealership where a consumer data platform makes sense or doesn't? Or is it good for everybody?
You know, that's an interesting question, because let's think about it this way. As Alexander says, the black box, you know, you have to put money into it, but is it really gonna spin you a positive ROI? And more importantly, do you have the assets and the team in place to manage that? Because that is a whole job in itself. That is a single person, like, I need to have eyes on this constantly. You can't have people plugging in and out as they wish. This is something that needs to be monitored to make sure that it is fruitful. So when we think about that in terms of the investment and how you're going to leverage it, are you going to actually use it in a way that is beneficial? Or is it, I just want to see all my numbers because I want to see all the numbers? The numbers mean nothing if we don't make them usable.
Wonderful. A discussion around data and analytics would not be complete if we did not mention Google, and specifically the impending deadline of July 1st for the end of the universal analytics platform and everybody going to GA4. Alexander, we'll start with you, then take it to Catherine. GA4, thoughts?
I've been spending a lot of time with my marketing specialist going through this. I might have even roped in friends that consult who don't work for the group to try to help my head around it. So I am still processing.
Me too. Catherine.
It's a lot to process. And what we know now is that we're moving from a session-based to event-based type of measurement. And kind of our philosophy and thought is that anyone who's going to be using this not only needs to have their own BI tool, but kind of more than anything, we need to reference what we know and don't know. What are controllables versus non-controllables? So what we firmly believe is, if you're familiar with Brian Pash, he's kind of setting that standardization for how Automotive is going to use this new Google Analytics tool. And I was talking to my director here, and we firmly believe that this tool is not going to be free forever. It's not going to be free. And we kind of have the foresight to look into this, and we look at Google Shopping. That was free for a year, and now it's one of the most expensive things that you can have within your Google suite. So those are just kind of the things that we're like making these small predictions, events versus session based. Be prepared for a price tag, and then finally, you need to have that standardization. Brian Pash is doing a great job with that. So if you haven't read his article that came out, was it last weekend or the weekend before? Go and read it. It's definitely worth the kind of crash course just to kind of set that directional heading. And I mean, it's coming for us. We don't have a choice. So you kind of got to drink the Kool-Aid and just decide what you're going to do with it.
Very true. And two things to call out there. One is it's your prediction that Google will someday charge for that, but that's just a prediction. That's a guess. That's a hypothesis.
Yes.
That's interesting. Number two, TradePending is a member of the Automotive Standards Council. We are part of that Brian Pash group. We currently send events in today to GA4 through our own approaching system, and we're working to get the ASC standard in place as well too. So that's coming really soon. You'll hear more from us about that later.
I'm really excited to hear what you guys come out with too, because, we've, always used you guys, and it'll be really interesting to see what comes out of this. I think it's going to be a good thing. I really do. I think it's going to bring a lot of people to the, fireside to have those chats and really help us be a little bit more progressive than we have been. I
agree. All right, let's kick this back over and close this thing out here. There we go. All right, there's me again on TradePending TV in the studio here. All right, so we're going to give away some pies. We're going to do that right now. Thank you for everyone who is still oh, I see people dropping off. That's a mistake. That means you don't get a pie.
Why?
So here we go. First winner, Becky Cantu. Email us marketing@tradepending.com. We'll get you your pie. Coming up next, I'm picking at random here. Robert Phillips. Number 2, pie number 3, Kim Powell. Kim Powell, thank you for being here today. Jay Sancraint, that's pie number 4. We got one more pie to give away here. And Tasmeen Harrington, you have won the 5th pie on Pie Day. If anyone has any questions, don't see anything currently, that's totally fine. We have a great resource for you here. We'll get to that in a second. If you don't have your own TradePending mascot, you can see one kind of hanging back up there on the shelf behind me there. Hit that link up. We will mail you one. You can keep it on your desk. It will drink water forever as long as you feed it. That's true.
It's true. I have my own wobbly bird and I rather enjoy it. That's a lot of fun.
Wonderful. If you do have questions after this, we've got our contact information there. Thank you, Catherine, for being here. Alexander, thank you for being here as well. He's closing deals. He's got to get off the phone. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much, Matthew.